What is up, YouTube? I wanna call this a post-trading analysis video, but I haven't taken a single trade today as well. However, Bitcoin was pumping, and I was like, we can still go over the markets, look at what I was watching, and which setups were invalidated while I was watching them, and just have a quick overview, prepare for tomorrow as well, and then see from there. So, as you guys should know, I've been talking about this Bitcoin Model 1 reaccumulation the moment we were right here. And I was talking about if we hit this demand zone right here, this could be the test. The test of the Model 1 schematic, and then X is the target, equal to the all-time high. And surprisingly, price did not have that full inefficiency fill right here, filling that imbalancy. But we actually bounced from that tiny 1 minute demand zone that was in there, which I wasn't expecting to hold, but it still worked, right? And what's happening now is that, just as a quick reminder for you guys, that I was telling, okay, if we break this high, we're going to come to this high. If we break that high, we're going to come to this or if we break that high, we're going to go to the all-time high, right? And in the meantime, we can expect like maybe a tiny rejection from this supply zone, but overall, I would expect price to go to the all-time high. What we're seeing now is like, it's so typical Bitcoin behavior. It's where you SFP a low, and it's not particularly about the SFP, but it's just you're coming down, and then you just from that one low you put in, you have a slow grind up until it just takes off, leaving so much liquidity below you. And just looking back in the chart, it's what happens literally all the time, where right here in this consolidation phase, you were just grinding up, and then you took off to the upside. And in same way in this whole consolidation phase, it was just a slow grind up until you just push up. And even here in this consolidation phase, it was just a slow grind up until you go up. And it's very annoying to trade. I have to admit, it's very annoying, especially if you trade Wyckoff like we do, because with a Wyckoff schematic, you take the initial low. And it's very typical for Bitcoin, once it decides to take off, that it doesn't take that low anymore, which is unfortunate, because I haven't had a chance to open like a good long position, because I was watching these weekend stops as well for a potential sweep into that demand zone, and then sweeping those lows. But we just decided to like follow this demand chain that we had going on in here, where actually here you had a nice little demand zone, which was part of a demand chain in here, and then tapping into it, you had a range, but I don't really see like a good long confirmation. This was your initial range. You swept both sides here at the top, extended to the bottom. That's not good extended. Let me make that more clean for you guys. Like this and like that. So yeah, you had a tiny accumulation right here in premium discount, or in the extreme discount, but there wasn't anything tradable in there. And then we had a break, which was just a fake break to probably hit more demand on the left, and then we went up, making higher lows and higher highs. And then again here, you had that fake break effect just to hit more demand, and then we went higher, bumping on the news, and then just having again that pump effect. And I have done, back in the day, I did research on like big macro pumps, and I can already tell you guys that if you run a pump, it's not really part of any entry model of mine. I'll rather just catch along from lower and then ride the pump up. But what's very typical for a pump, which you can see here, this is a more local pump, but if it's going to end up being a bigger one, then you can expect a explosive move up, followed by a retracement, and then something that looks like a distribution, like you can see that, okay, we have that sweep of the high, and maybe we have that one tap and that two tap effect, but it just turns into a higher low for a higher high, or it just turns into a reaccumulation. But oftentimes it wicks the high and just goes higher. And that's how a lot of people get trapped along the way, thinking that maybe a pullback is going to take place, and you SFP the highs, and not really, they're not real breaks. They can also be a break, but in general, you can get signs of a distribution that just fails and turns into a higher low for a higher high. Because here you had a break, you had the mitigation, you had the break, you had the mitigation, and then here you had something that looked like a 1, looked like a 2, looked like a 3, but it just went higher. And that's just very typical for a pump schematic and how you can trade them. Loki, if it's pumping, you could just trade every pullback into range demand. As you can see here, it worked once, then it worked twice, and then it worked. I don't know if we mitigated this one. No, you missed the mitigation there, but as you can see, it worked pretty good after you had that pump on the CPI news. So not much going on right now for a potential trade setup. It's just very important what's going to happen at this high. The way we're coming into supply right now, I am getting a feeling that we can squeeze through the supply, just because, as said earlier, we're creating market structure within the supply, right? And just looking at the supply itself, it's very clear that the supply itself has a, damn, I didn't know it was this far back. The supply itself has a bit of a liquidity curve hanging above it, right? So if we start creating structure within, then I just expect this to get ran through, and then we're coming at that more important high that we need to break to see higher prices. But yeah, if we do start breaking like above that 67K level pretty good, we could see a new all-time high pretty soon. However, from there, it can turn into a distribution, right? So it can easily turn into a distribution, and then we can go down from there, or price can do whatever, you know? The Wyckoff Model 1, the technical target is only that range high. And then after we tap that range high, price can do whatever. It can turn into a distribution, it can have follow through. I think we need some more time, but anything can happen, especially because we got that bigger liquidity curve going on in general, but that we can just squeeze through. Okay? A potential scenario I do have in mind on Bitcoin, or for Bitcoin, is that if this is going to be an aggressive squeeze, I expect a deviation of that high. And we know that Model 1s or Wyckoff accumulations, Model 1s or Model 2s, can turn into bigger Model 1s or Model 2 schematics. So we already had that one. So taking that low again will invalidate any form of a Wyckoff schematic, unless this becomes like, I don't know, monthly structure, and you can just disregard this pricing and take this as your new range, which is very unlikely to happen. But if we do squeeze up and we take that all-time high, we know that a Model 1 accumulation can go over into a Model 2 accumulation. Like that's very normal. And if we come up leaving loads of sell-side liquidity, then I do see a potential where maybe this is going to turn into a distribution, but the distribution never hit its target. The only objective of the distribution was to grab more liquidity and hit more demand to turn into a bigger Model 2 accumulation, right? Where the Model 1 turns into a bigger 1, 2, 3. And that's an idea I can see happening just because we left that really good looking demand below us untapped and unmitigated. Okay? So that's just an idea that I have, which I would like, because I think it would mess up a lot of people. Because by the time we come all the way down here, people will start talking about new lows. But they could just keep on ranging. It's that simple. So far we just play the range, and if I do see confirmations for a long, I will take it. And that immediately brings me into our beloved Matic short, guys. I was talking about, I can only confirm that this range low is going to get taken if and Bitcoin has followed through, but also for Matic alone, if we start breaking this low. Okay, if we start breaking that low, that this demand zone, which was part of a nice looking demand chain, and as you guys know, I love trading my second demand my second order block of a demand chain. Um, and yeah, this was very nice. And I was looking for a hedge long here, just because on a bigger scale we were deviating or hovering around that volume area low, manipulating below it, and we were gonna tap into the demand. So looking more closely into what actually happened here is that we were just following structure down like this, and then price is price was leaving so much and has left so much buy side liquidity, and especially in this last leg down, like it's just the highs are one straight trend line of just pure buy side liquidity, and that's why you can expect a move up like this, very aggressive, because you're just squeezing through stop losses, right? So as I was looking for just a simple range play, sweeping this low, breaking structure back to bullish within the range, reclaiming the volume area, and then try to catch a long. And what happened is I was watching my downward structure. So downward structure from the top down, I was making lower lows and lower highs like this. So this was your main high to break. And then I was actually narrowing it down to your more fractal market structure. So even the structure from the most local downwards pull like this. And then I was watching for this high to break. Always checking, what is the most high time frame valid pull. This is in the market structure pull in the 30. It is on the 15, so I want to see a 15-minute break. Okay? And we had that break right here, followed by a pullback, and the break is pretty poor in my opinion. Like it's like one candle above that barely closed above, and the second candle closed below it immediately. So once I see a break like this, which is a very bad break, I always want to see a reconfirmation on the pullback down. So on the move down, I want to see structure break back to bullish again, confirming that we're going to go back towards that first break, that high, and then we can see from there what happens. Okay, so zooming in on Matic on the 3-minute time frame, we're gonna check, okay, did we have that downward spool, or in general, do we have like a good looking zone on the left here to come back for that needs to be like mitigated before we can move higher? But we didn't really have that on Matic. No, there wasn't really anything special in my opinion. No, nothing that stands out. So in that case, you just watch market structure, right? So we're watching market structure from the top down, lower highs and lower lows like this. And this is where you got your break. I think this wasn't the break yet. On the 5-minute, it was an SFP. So yeah, it was also valid market structure on the 5-minute and not on the 10. So we're going to check the 5. We want to see the 5 break. It was an SFP, so that's not a valid break yet. And then I was like, okay, this is not an SFP, or this is not a break yet. It's only an SFP. So I just moved my break higher towards this high. I was like, okay, I want to see this break until I confirm a long. Right here, that broke. However, and that was my issue and why I didn't take the trade eventually, is that I didn't want to enter on this long position with my stop below this low. You could put your stop below the internal low. That's what we do pretty often. It's just that we left pretty good looking demand below us, and once price takes this high, it can just follow this bigger pool, invalidating this internal confirmation, and it can just come all the way back down for a higher low and a higher high, right? So just to be on the safer side, I wanted to put my stop loss below the low. And then yes, we can target the high all the way up here for a 5.7% type of trade. Okay. And this is actually a pretty valid trade, but I was not paying that close attention, while also, I have to admit it, while also being a bit biased, because I was really manifesting that we were gonna just have like a fake break and then just go down, just because I was so heavily short, which is totally my fault. 100% my fault, because this is a valid hedge, especially because I can just hedge my positions, right? Because I'm so heavily short from way higher. But this was actually a pretty valid entry, having that target there. And how you should have managed it is that you put your stop here, right? And then going on the 15-minute, which was the valid put that we were using, we had those higher lows and higher highs. And then even following the bigger pool, the internal pool, because this is all fractals, so following this bigger pool, we got that break right here. But from this, let's change the color, from this blue market structure pool, price could come all the way back down, disregarding the red drawing to mitigate the last demand before coming higher. So there wasn't really a moment in time where you could have trilled your stop loss, in my opinion, just because we had valid market structure and higher time for market structure waiting above us. But the moment you took this demand and then broke the high this bullish right here, mitigating this order block, you can move your stop loss below this low, right? And then your TP would have been hit fairly pretty soon. At the moment, I did take some more profits. That was my problem, guys. I was watching the chart, and the moment I saw it turn pretty bullish right here, I took more profit on my Matic trade. But I didn't long it, so that's something to note down. That was, I think, a bit biased because I was in the short from higher. But as we speak, we have a 12-hour order block with imbalance waiting above us. We do break market structure bullish in order to get there. However, we still have that 6-hour pull. So following this 6-hour pull, you have that break. And this is just all, because this is one downwards candle. So this is all one break. So the hope for the short is that we SFP this high into supply and then we go down or we go lower. But I have taken more profits once I saw it turn bullish there. However, I should have taken a long. So I'm going to note that down actually after making this video. But as we speak, my stop loss is, because this is also part of a nice little supply chain. And as we speak, my stop loss is right above there. Still in good profits since our entry is from right up there. But yeah, I was forced to scale wide some positions on these lows, which we have been doing pretty nicely. But I should have taken a hedge instead, and that's something I'm going to note down. Furthermore, on gold, gold has not been giving me any trade setups. So coming back to, just wondering where am I drawing? Where's my toolbar? Well, I don't know where my toolbar is. Oh, there it is. Okay, but it has nothing. So on my sorry, I just got a text message, got a bit distracted. But okay. So I was talking about how right here we had a more local range, and that this could still be a deviation of this local range hitting this. It's very annoying not having that toolbar, hitting the supply zone, right? Oh, there it is. Okay. Hitting that supply zone. So what ended up happening is that this was a crucial point. Like in the last video, I was talking about how right here, let's put it back on our charts real quick. How right here, really getting used to not having a toolbar. But okay. Someone's calling me. 1 sec. Okay, so this was a crucial point. I was like, either we break this low and we start getting acceptance inside the volume area, or we break that high. And I said, if we break that high, price is 100% coming back up towards that high. Okay, those were the two scenarios. I was hoping for this scenario to play out right here, this lower one, because I think it would have given a better trading setup. But what happened is that price did end up breaking structure from the top down, from these lower highs and lower lows, and then we created higher low for the higher high effect, targeting that high, and this was just a trail of liquidity that was getting squeezed. 1 sec, guys, I have to answer this real quick. Testing the audio. I think we're good. I don't know if I was muted or not, but I'll see back in the recording. My apologies for that. So yeah, we bounced from that volume area high, not getting acceptance back inside, started breaking structure back to bullish, and then we're taking this high, disregarding that supply zone because it was already mitigated, and now we can confirm that we do have this bigger range going on, where there's low-key nothing but just like buy-side liquidity above us. So I'm leaning more bullish than bearish, but still we need to find our local entries in there. But overall, we can get towards that high. Okay. Zooming in, because there wasn't really anything on the chart that significant in my opinion, because it was just a. I'm sorry, I'm getting all these fucking messages. Okay. Okay, I shut it off. I'm focused now. Damn, I cannot do two things at a time. Okay. So we broke that internal structure back to bullish, right? But the way we came up here, it's like it was just a trend line motion up. And if something is like a trend line motion up, that's something I just absolutely hate. Because you guys know my entry models are based on ranges and range deviations. And when you have things like this, it's not a range deviation. But then also following price regarding CPI is that I was expecting price to come higher after sweeping liquidity, but there wasn't just an entry. So looking at CPI, which was here at 1430, we still had that liquidity zone, or that buy side liquidity above us. And then after, which is also the target of this internal break, but then after CPI news came out, we swept higher, wicking that high, kind of looking like we were going to break market structure back to bearish, but it failed, swept this sell side liquidity and went higher. So I was looking for a potential long in here, because news events always do two things: either a buy to sell to buy, or a buy to sell, or vice versa, a sell to buy to sell, or a sell to buy, right? So it always does those, either one of those. And this was a scenario where we had liquidity on both sides, right? We had liquidity on both sides, where we had that buy side liquidity above us, locally speaking, and that sell side liquidity below us. So once you have that, you can kind of interpretate which is going to happen. If you have liquidity in both directions, maybe it's going to do that sell to buy to sell, or buy to sell to buy. If you only have liquidity in one direction, maybe it's going to be a sell to buy or a buy to sell, right? And that's also how I'm potentially creating a new strategy. I don't know if I will public. I don't know if I will make it public. I haven't really put all the the details and everything in there to make it like a strict strategy. Maybe I'll release it, maybe not. But I am working on something that seems very promising so far. So you'll guys hear me talk about that more. But yeah, zooming in on that wick actually is that, again, I want downward structure to break back to bullish before I enter a long, and the internal structure is all the way up here, because again here we had that sideways motion up. And I think this is pretty important for you guys to realize, because you're watching me trade live, or not particularly live, but you're watching me trade day by day, right? And I'm explaining what I'm doing every single day. The same way we were banging out 10 to 20% weeks back to back to back to back the previous month or the last month, having range deviations and Wyckoff trades everywhere, also in this range. The same way, I have not taken a single trade on gold in 2.5 weeks. And it shows patience. I know that there will be high probability setups on gold again. Why risk losing my money trying to catch a trade? Like, not losing money is making money in trading. So I think this is also an important aspect that you guys need to realize and need to see from someone else that is profitable. That sometimes I don't have a trade setups for 2 to 3 weeks, and this is just on gold. Like we have been trading on the crypto markets, but let's say I wasn't a crypto trader as well, and I was only trading gold, I would not have taken a single trade in 2 weeks. And this is the third week that we're in right now, and it's Wednesday, and I haven't taken a trade, right? So it just shows another side, because there will be that 1 week where you can just bang another 30% out of the markets, right? So for now, my expectations, I'm following local market structure up. So I'm just checking where my highs and lows are. So you get that 5-minute low right here, 5-minute high right there. And I'm just waiting to see if we create a range and maybe we start accumulating and I can get an entry on the reaccumulation, or we just get a Rimsey effect. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just following my local structure. Okay. Euro, I posted about this. We're coming into local resistance, but in general, I'm watching this range. It's pretty funny to see how we have been like very right on Euro regarding these tops and bottoms, right? I was telling you about that candle formation. If you don't know about it, I really don't know which video it was, but I was talking about these candle formations that work extremely good, especially on the weekly time frame. They create the local bottom there, local top there, and we were getting it again right here. However, I was just very annoyed that we had this daily demand zone right here. If I switch to daily, we had that clean looking demand zone. And if this was going to be that 1, that 2, and that 3, so that clear Wyckoff Model 2 accumulation schematic, where this distribution hit its target, tried to turn into a bigger Model 2, but ended up going into Model 2 accumulation, you would expect price to hit that demand zone, but it didn't. So that was the only thing that bothered me, but I was aware of that nice little candle formation that could push price higher, and having this follow through, I am pretty certain that that this potential this model 2 accumulation is in play. It could happen that price does wants to go down, kind of this being the LPSY of this bigger Wyckoff schematic at the top, and then maybe it wicks this low to create a bigger model 2. That could happen, but in general, looking at it just from a range perspective and not even a Wyckoff perspective, we had that range deviation of the val. We hit some sort of demand in here, not the cleanest looking daily one, but this is all just demand. And yeah, I just see nothing but liquidity here. Like, we have local resistance, but I don't expect the world off of that range supply. And this is actually a weekly order block with imbalance that caused a pretty significant move down and is hovering around that volume area high. So as I posted on my Twitter, I do see this as a magnet. I expect this zone to get hit, and then we can see from there what price wants to do. Okay? But also, I said I'm trading accordingly. So again, here I'm following my local structure, following my local structure up and seeing what presents itself. Hopefully a range with some sort of a Wyckoff schematic whatsoever. To finish it off, I was looking at a long on euro, where in the morning we had this range right here, and it was looking like a potential distribution, a 1, 2, and a 3, that actually ended up failing. And that's actually always more bullish than bearish when you see a potential distribution, but it just completely failed. Like, it couldn't even break fractal market structure, which was right here, nor internal, which was lower, of course. And it's a distribution that failed. So every time a distribution fails and we actually start breaking market structure back to bullish, having that fourth break, I'm expecting a higher low for a higher high. So we had that demand zone. We had that demand zone right here. And I was just following my local structure. My 15-minute low being right here, following this upwards pull. We wicked into it, hitting that demand zone, and I was looking for a potential structure break back to bullish, which was right here. And then you could long, and in this case, I would put my stop loss below the internal low, because I think if you're going to go past this low or lower than this low, you'll definitely come to this low. So just a nice little extra redefinement of a better RR, or causing a better RR. We had some liquidity above us. And also looking at it from a time perspective, is this low was put in right before London. London opens, takes that pre-London liquidity, hits demand, and then goes higher. Pretty typical. Normally it's Asia, but Asia was way lower this time, right? So this would be a long I would take normally. However, it was 30 minutes before CPI, and I wasn't really I didn't want to hold my trade during CPI, while at the same time my first target being a 0.8 risk to reward. So let's say this was like a 2.5 trade, 2.5 risk to reward trade. I would still take it and close it behind or before CPI, but just because it was a 0.8 RR, and I knew it was gonna take time to break this high and then continue higher. And in the meantime, CPI will have taken place, and I would have to close my trade before. I wasn't really bound on taking it. However, we did have still that imbalance on the left that wasn't filled yet. Talking about this imbalance right here until that high that we had, and CPI just smashed through it, even grabbing more liquidity. So this is also the first hint towards my potential strategy that's going to get created, trading red news folder events, because it's all about fixing the market. That's the only hint I'm going to give. Okay? But yeah, Euro also just watching local structure. If I see something tomorrow exciting, I'll probably stream it, because I will be excited enough to stream it, because I haven't I want to trade, guys. They're testing my patience, but in the meantime, nothing much is really happening. The alts are pushing as well. As you can see, my watch list, it's big in the green as we speak. And yeah, I'm just trying to catch some trades. But stay patient. Don't risk trades on setups that aren't high probability in your eyes. And um, let's see what the rest of this week can bring to us. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Oh, before I forget, if you're all the way till the end of this video right here, and you have not watched my video on how to make money this alt season, which is the previous video, the video before this vid, I would suggest you watch that so you can know what to expect this altcoin season. Okay? So definitely watch that video. And again, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.